Pasado perfecto continuo afirmativo.
Past perfect, continuous affirmative.
Había estado estudiando toda la noche para el examen.
She had been studying all night for the exam. She had been studying all night for the exam.
Llevaban semanas trabajando en el proyecto.
They had been working on the project for weeks. They had been working on the project for weeks.
Había estado practicando piano desde la mañana.
He had been practicing the piano since morning. He had been practicing the piano since morning.
Llevábamos más de una hora esperando el autobús.
We had been waiting for the bus for over an hour. We had been waiting for the bus for over an hour.
Ella estaba preparando la cena cuando llegaron los invitados.
She had been cooking dinner when the guests arrived. She had been cooking dinner when the guests arrived.
Habían estado viendo películas todo el fin de semana.
They had been watching movies all weekend. They had been watching movies all weekend.
Llevaba 2 horas haciendo ejercicio en el gimnasio.
She had been exercising at the gym for 2 hours. She had been exercising at the gym for 2 hours.
Llevaban horas hablando por teléfono.
They had been talking on the phone for hours. They had been talking on the phone for hours.
Había estado trabajando en el jardín toda la tarde.
He had been working in the garden all afternoon. He had been working in the garden all afternoon.
Los estudiantes llevaban meses estudiando inglés.
The students had been studying English for months. The students had been studying English for months.
Llevaba años cantando en el coro.
She had been singing in the choir for years. She had been singing in the choir for years.
Llevaba semanas pintando la casa.
He had been painting the house for weeks. He had been painting the house for weeks.
Llevaban meses renovando su casa.
They had been renovating their house for months. They had been renovating their house for months.
Había estado jugando videojuegos desde la mañana.
He had been playing video games since morning. He had been playing video games since morning.
Llevábamos días trabajando en la tarea.
We had been working on the assignment for days. We had been working on the assignment for days.
El pasado perfecto continuo afirmativo, en inglés se utiliza para hablar sobre acciones que ocurrieron y continuaron durante un periodo de tiempo específico, en el pasado antes de otra acción o evento pasado. Se forma utilizando el verbo auxiliar ya seguido del gerundio del verbo principal. Llevaba semanas tejiendo un suéter.
She had been knitting a sweater for weeks. She had been knitting a sweater for weeks.
Llevaban semanas ensayando para la obra.
They had been rehearsing for the play for weeks. They had been rehearsing for the play for weeks.
Había estado pescando en el lago todo el día.
He had been fishing at the lake all day. He had been fishing at the lake all day.
Llevábamos limpiando la casa desde la mañana.
We had been cleaning the house since morning. We had been cleaning the house since morning.
Llevaba años estudiando inglés.
She had been studying English for years. She had been studying English for years.
Habían estado esperando ansiosamente los resultados.
They had been waiting for the results anxiously. They had been waiting for the results anxiously.
Había estado reparando el auto todo el día.
He had been repairing the car all day. He had been repairing the car all day.
Llevaban semanas planeando la fiesta.
They had been planning the party for weeks. They had been planning the party for weeks.
Llevaba meses trabajando en su novela.
He had been working on his novel for months. He had been working on his novel for months.
Llevábamos años ahorrando dinero para nuestro viaje.
We had been saving money for our trip for years. We had been saving money for our trip for years.
Habían estado estudiando para el examen toda la noche.
They had been studying for the exam all night. They had been studying for the exam all night.
Había estado arreglando el grifo que goteaba toda la tarde.
He had been fixing the leaky faucet all afternoon. He had been fixing the leaky faucet all afternoon.
Llevábamos horas esperando que parara de llover.
We had been waiting for the rain to stop for hours. We had been waiting for the rain to stop for hours.
Llevaba meses escribiendo su tesis.
She had been writing her thesis for months. She had been writing her thesis for months.
Llevaban años viajando por el mundo.
They had been traveling around the world for years. They had been traveling around the world for years.